How's everybody's week? I know it's a lot of us to try to explain how's everybody's week, but a few of you kind of explain what your week was like, some of the challenges that you had this week, or some of the thoughts that you had this week. At least five. Share that.
My week was it seemed to go by super fast. And in sharing about how my week went and some of the trials that I faced or some of the challenges, it almost ties into what we were talking about last week with a child needing to see a father being judged, and how bad soil still sends nutrients up to the tree. And so how important a foundation is in order to have something that is whole and complete. Those have been some of what I've run into.
My week was it was fast too. It was a short week because of Labor Day. I think some of my challenges. Well, my main challenge was that I was feeling sort of inadequate. I was feeling some strong feelings of inadequacy that was brought on by some of the things that were happening at work, and just really feeling like it's time for me to get out the military.
Okay.
Another quick week as far as I was concerned, in that it more along the lines of it just blurring a lot. As far as ideas, a couple of things that have been on my mind have been loneliness, isolation, and how to work through that. And I think this was something that I don't know if it was this past week or before, but something that I talked to Micaiah and Jalen and even you, Uncle Tracy, on different occasions about, and vulnerability within that framework has been on my mind as well.
Interesting. Okay. So two more. Well, at least two more share what your week is like. The challenges of your week. Your mic, Junior.
For me, my week's been kind of slow, but also at the same time kind of fast. I mean, it's been hard. It was just a hard week for me, and the challenge I was kind of dealing with is, I guess, the feeling of like having a lot on my not on my plate, but a lot pushed on me. A lot of, and how the harshness of how I work, or the harsh, to me, at least the harsh environment of where I work and all the stresses that I have. It's just been really tiring.
Okay. So, question real quick. How many has mostly everybody felt this week that it's been kind of a slow or kind of a kind of a draw kind of week? Has it been like that for most everybody?
Mhm.
Would you say that, Chris? Senior?
Oh no, my week it's just been a typical week. You know, I thought a lot about the last conversation we had, and I thought that was really a good conversation. I was really opening my eyes a lot to see things. And it just created a greater contrast of who I am and what darkness really looks like. So that was, you know, talking to people at work and different things. You know, it really it brought a lot of clarity and understanding people and where they are at. And so it's been interesting. It's over with my relationship with my wife. It just understanding what judgment is and all of that. It has brought a lot of definition to our relationship, and so that's been that's been that has created a lot of interesting things for us to explore. So my week is and all in all, my week has been mainly just consists of thinking on our last conversation and seeing the effects of how that affected me and the relationship with coworkers and relationship with my wife.
Okay. So in other words, Chris, what you're saying is that, in other words, it was the last week was somewhat of inspirational to you, or it gave you energy to actually share and with other people, whatever, things like that. Is that what you're saying? It kind of made you active.
You asking me that?
Last week, it kind of last week's conversation kind of prepared you into this week.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
It has brought a lot of motivation and cleared a lot of things up. Who I am, who my wife, what my wife, who my wife is, and and understanding how these two things work together. You know, because me and my wife are, I'm telling you, we are so opposite. We're so opposite, we don't even have common ground. Most couples have a common ground. We all like going to movies. We like going to movies, or we both like traveling, and they have some kind of common ground, but we don't even have that. We're exact everything, but understanding all that we talked about actually helped me see that being the exact opposite is what balances both of us. It's really,
Mhm.
and if we can learn how to put this together, we'll be really, really balanced. Really balanced. So
I see. Okay, well, um,
confusion,
w-
you know.
we can get started. I wanted to give everybody a chance to, I mean, at least 5 people, because we have so many people on right now, to share what their week was like, some of their challenges, and some of the thoughts that they had. I don't know if everybody's seen that we have Chad was able to get back on this time, which is great. Hey everybody, Chad is one of the original. So when we first started, he was on when we first started. He used to live in Pennsylvania. He's moved to North Carolina, I think it is.
Yeah.
And yeah. So so we'll get started. We'll see if we can pick up from last week. I kind of wish Nate was here, Brian. There was, I had the feeling that there was some things that I don't know what they were, but there were some things that were unclear, that maybe we did not, that needed to be clarified is what I would say. So if there's any questions from last week, feel free to ask those questions and we can go, we can try to answer them. If not, someone give us a recap of last week and see if we can pick up from there.
What I remember about last week was judgment. What I remember is the importance, and like this kind of spans a couple of the meetings, but last week in particular, I remember how we talked about how important it is to have the foundation correct. And so to bring it to judgment, I think that the foundation that you have to build upon has to be judgment. And that's kind of what I was hearing Chris talk about when he was talking about some of his relationships and how he's applied some of what we talked about. And he's seeing that contrast is not necessarily a bad thing. It's a bad thing when you live in the extreme of contrast, where you will either only go to a very low point or a very high point. And so, what Chris was talking about was the balance between those two, and how judgment is the only thing that allows you to see the connection between seeming opposites. I'm not sure if somebody can help me pick up.
Let me help just a little bit, just to help Chad. Last week, the meeting started with a question, which was, how do you know when you're being judged? And so some of the things that Jalen was talking about kind of is what we segued into. But I think one of the points was talking about the contrast between where you should be versus where you are, and how the highlight of that contrast is a good indicator as far as knowing when you are judged.
A part of what we talked about too is really understanding, when you say the contrast, part of what we're really tackling is understanding the difference between condemnation and judgment. So when someone is being condemned, and when someone is being judged, we also talked about what the purpose of true judgment is. I did not say this then, but judgment is really an attribute of, or it is a part of love. Without it, love is very, I would say there wouldn't really be love. You do have to have judgment in order to have love. So, most of the time we don't relate judgment to words like that, because most of the time we look at judgment as being someone who is, or a person or something that basically has an opinion of you, and that opinion is their personal view of you. And it may not align with your view of yourself. And so because it doesn't align with my view of myself, we get this feeling of judgment, and it is, we say it's incorrect. And so we have a tendency to then, it causes separation, division, areas to where when I say separation and division, it's almost, again, how we use the word opinion. Well, that's just that person's opinion of me that is not correct, that's not accurate. And so there goes a divide in thought or picture, things like that. So that's kind of the comment on how we look at judgment today, is it does that. Whereas real judgment causes growth, causes harmony, causes success, causes marriage. Real judgment causes that. It causes unity. Without judgment, you cannot have unity. Real judgment does that, as opposed to divide. So if you look at what we see today, most of the judgments that we have today divide, whether it is how we look at police brutality, the police situations that have affected us in the last few years, no matter what, those things, whether it is how the president has made certain decisions and it impacts us all. He's made a judgment to do something this way and do that. And as you would see, you have different political parties, different things like that. All of that is coming from an improper use of judgment, or it's not really accurate that what true judgment does. Because true judgment causes life, it causes growth, it causes unity. Real judgment does that, so it's necessary. It's kind of hard for me. There's some things I have in my mind, but I don't know how to connect it yet. So any questions, any comments on that?
Yeah, I was thinking last week, I thought last week let me see. Last week, towards the end of the conversation, Shane had mentioned something about, I forget how he put it, but he said something about that, like, he was saying, he was reciting something I told him about who he was, and he was saying how that he's not like that. He doesn't see himself like that. And so that was towards the end of our conversation. And I remember Tracy began to explain how that identity of the child it comes from the father, and how that the roots are in that soil. It will cause the whole tree from the trunk to the branches to be in decay or have very little growth as a result of roots being in bad soil. And they see liken the roots to being the father, the trunk being the mother, and the branches being the children. And so with that, I thought a lot about that conversation. In one way, you look at what Shane said as how does that relate to judgment? But it was it's very, very related to everything we said. So, I thought about this during the week, and I actually talked to Shane and my sons about it. And what came to mind was kind of going off something what Makai had brought up last week, and he spoke about the name of someone, and how he at one time did not see that he was like his father, but as through life circumstances, he began to see that he's very much like his father. He carries his father's name. And I can't remember all that what kind of went into, but that came to my mind also. So I was thinking how that the real purpose of judgment, yes, it is to create a contrast. But the purpose of this contrast is to establish the name of someone. And so when you look at Genesis, then the first day of creation, then you look at the sixth day of creation, Adam, that was the whole purpose of let there be light, was to establish Adam, the name Adam. What is Adam? It was to give a brain to establish this name Adam. So I thought about this a lot during the week, and me and Shane and Roy were talking about judgment and name and all of that, and I began to tell him that how come a person can't see, when a person can't see their name, it's because the father has never had his name established. I was explaining, I'm trying to remember how I put it. So I began explaining we have an earthly name, and we have what I call a spiritual name. I don't like using the word spiritual, but I don't know what other word to use. We have an earthly name and we have a spiritual name. A lot of times we view ourselves by our earthly name. But Yah does not identify us by our earthly name. He identifies us by our spiritual name. And the purpose of judgment is to develop the spiritual name to its fullness. You think of in Hebrew, it's very interesting. Hebrew never really addresses the outer appearance of something. Greek always addresses the outer appearance. Hebrew always addresses the function of something. So if we're talking about a pencil, a car, or whatever, Hebrew won't address the pencil looks like this, the car looks like that. It will always address the function of a pencil, the function of a car. Your name is your function. In the judgment, it is to develop your function, your purpose. So when the scripture talks about in the beginning, created heaven and earth, the earth was without form and void, it is saying the earth had no purpose, no function, or no purpose, no value. And the judgment was to bring that identity, to create that identity. So I began to share a lot of this, what I felt I was impressed, that I began to see, and about judgment and the earthly name, spiritual name, and me and my sons were able to come to an understanding and come to an agreement about that. But I was thinking and kind of still going along with this, that I said this already, but if a father does not know his spiritual name, then he's going to operate in his earthly name. But he has a child while operating under his earthly name, then the child will never know his identity, and the child will begin to try to find something to identify himself by. If you identify yourself by your earthly name, then it's saying you're placing your value on something very, very, very low. Your value is not measured by your earthly name. Your value is measured by your spiritual name. And that's the name that Yah identifies all men by, your spiritual name. So when he called Israel out of Egypt, the word Exodus, it means names. Genesis means beginning, Exodus means names. When he called Israel out of Egypt, Genesis means beginning, Exodus means names. So when he called the names out of Egypt, what he's saying, he called the light that he identified the names by. So the names that he called Egypt was the line of Shem. Shem means character. He called that character, that light, the spiritual name out of Egypt to develop that. And so, again, I'm repeating myself. So the journey from day 1 to day 6 is all to develop this name, this spiritual name. And so that we'll function under that spiritual name.
Now, Tracy, I expected you to jump in there. Chris, you had a lot of inspiring thoughts. One of the things that I was sharing with Michael, kind of in just a short conversation, was had to do with measuring the results of judgment. The one thing, Chris, whenever you're talking about a name the way that I have it established in my mind is that the name is action based. So if you think in terms of a Hebrew name is verb based, then it is your name is based on how you respond and what you do. If you have an earthly name and you have relegated to something of lesser value, then it shows with how you respond with something. So in our household, is I'm trying to coexist with my absolute opposite. She's kind of got some opposite traits, just like you were talking about.
Mhm.
Well, there were some areas that wasn't healthy for her, and it wasn't healthy for anybody else. And so as we sorted through things and judgment was placed, then I looked to see the measure of those results.
Mhm.
When she responds differently than she used to, she has found her actual name. And so one of the things that I've noticed as I weigh and measure, like I'm trying to take inventory of what my judgment looks like. Am I judging correctly? Part of me knows that I am, but until I see the results of the judgment, then I kind of have to, closely examine myself. But once I see it, what I notice is that the results of judgment is a better response, different action.
As Chris was talking, I was looking up, and I was looking up the name Israel, and I don't have the deeper meaning of it, but let's see. What I have right now is, so I was thinking about what he was saying about names and the name. And one of the meanings of it is God prevails. So Jacob's name, from which meant something like supplanter, that kind of thing. Then his name was changed to Israel after he had been judged. So it was after he had been judged, after he was being chased by his brother, and he was trying to get away, and he decided that he would accept the challenge. And at some point, he wrestles with the angel. He prevails with the angel, and then his name is changed from Jacob, supplanter, to Israel. God prevails. And so just a part of the picture that I got out of that was that, again, I get a picture of the sun and how it is always revealing, always uncovering, always, until there is a positive or until life is created. So in one sense, I'm describing God prevails, but what was connected to that was that I think Chris was mentioning the name and or Chris Orlando, it really has to do with the action of something, the character of something, but it's nature, it's action. The name does. So I'm connecting that Israel with God will prevail. God prevails. This is now given to Jacob, and his name is called that. So it's also being described when it said for them to be a city set on a hill that could not be hid, meaning a beacon, a light. And it's really in reference to that light prevailing in through perverse times or overturning, changing, causing things that are falling apart, decayed, lost, all of those things. It's really referring to things being redeemed or rebuilt or restructured from light, which goes all the way back to Genesis. So what we understand when it said, let there be light, and it was that light, that first light that began to judge and that began to cause life, growth, change from a chaotic world. It was that light. Because the scripture says that it was without form and void. So I'm just connecting that to it.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to add something to that. I was doing some studying on that, and I know that the first word that was used to describe light is or, right? At least that's what it was translated from in the Hebrew. And that's speaking of a different light than, as you were saying, Tracy, a different light than the second light, which is like the light that we see. You know what I mean? And I know, like in the Bibles that we read today, I guess they both say light just for translational, just from I guess trying to make it easier to understand for everyone. But those two have very different meanings, at least in the study that I was studying and beginning to read. I'm still pretty much in Genesis, just rereading everything, trying to get an understanding from a different place. And I thought that was pretty interesting because I was just I guess just taking some time to learn about that recently. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
Anybody else?
I know that we talked about it a little bit after the previous men's group, Uncle Tracy, but part of what Chris brought out, which I thought was really interesting, and how he tied it to one of the points that Micaiah brought out in the previous one was, in one sense, what's in a name. Part of what I heard was name being the value in pointing to the behavior or action of something. And it was also interesting because I don't know if it was you, Chris, or Uncle Tracy, when you guys were talking about the summary of how we talked about judgment and how people see judgment today. When somebody mentioned the point of opinion within judgment, I think that's an interesting tie to what Chris just said. So for anyone who isn't on Facebook or didn't get to see it, a little bit ago, Uncle Tracy wrote a post on Facebook that said something to the effect of, a father defines his child, male or female, blessing or curse. And I think that solidifies or sets the foundation of identity. And there are a lot of, I feel like you can look at it very closely, or you can very closely or more globally, big picture. So that is, for example, in our relationship with God, that's in our relationship with our, if you want to say, physical father. But part of what I heard, just making a little bit like closer view with what Chris said, is I think it is common, and I think people see it, how we have progressed in society where we, in one sense, feel like we have the power to determine what and who we are. This is, you can be whatever you want to be, you can be whoever you want to be. That's kind of a hot topic, I would say, these days. And on one hand, just looking back on my life, one of the things that I feel like also came into play with that is not understanding how to contend with the pathology that I inherited on both sides of my family. So on one hand, talking about the negative behaviors, the illnesses, not understanding how to contend or how to heal from those things. And on the other hand, when you talk about judgment, not the function or the value of my family not being defined. And so what it creates is everyone, I believe, has a need for that. And so what it creates, and especially talking about how we are unfamiliar with judgment, unfamiliar with understanding how to discern one thing from the other, good from bad, light from dark, what it can create is, or what it does create, is a misrepresentation of identity and misrepresentation of value. But again, part of what Chris brought out is, in one sense, the value or function that is inherent to a particular family, a family name, and that, I would say, supersedes the identity of an individual, because I think that's another issue. We tend to fight so much for our identity or our value as an individual, but we miss that it's pointing to, I would say, maybe a larger, greater picture, which is, Uncle Tracy mentioned it with part of when you were talking about the church. That's how I'm interpreting it, at least. City set on the hill that cannot be hid, where you talk about the union created between a man and a woman, and how that identity supersedes the individual identity of the man and who he thinks he is, the woman who she thinks she is, and how the individual attributes that they have. But anyway, I thought that was interesting points that you brought out, Chris.
I have a question regarding all this. And something keeps popping out at me when we talk about judgment and identity and earthly name and spiritual name. And what if I were to say that a person's earthly name or earthly identity is established through judgment rooted in dominance, whereas the spiritual name identity is established through judgment without dominance?
All right, Chad, help me understand the last part. Did you say the spiritual name is established by without value? Go ahead.
Without, it's established without dominance. What I keep seeing is that the difference between judgment, correct judgment, and condemnation is dominance. To make judgment from a place of dominance would be an incorrect style that would lead to condemnation. Whereas when you're making judgment without a position of dominance, you're really seeking more correction. And on the flip side of that, someone being judged, let's say I'm being judged, if I feel that I'm being judged, or I am being judged from a position of dominance, someone else is dominating over me, then I can't, that judgment isn't going to correct my identity. However, when someone is judging from a non-dominant position, that seems to me the only way that identity can be corrected.
Okay. A part of what I would say is one of the reasons why I started the groups was because, first of all, I was working with couples, male and female, young men and young women, both. And especially from the women's side, they began to say that, and I'm relating this to the word dominance, that I was too strong. I was overpowering them. For a while.
Uncle Tracy.
And
Uncle
as
Tracy.
Can you hear me?
You broke up, and so we didn't hear you for probably a good 20 seconds or so. So the last thing that we heard was when you were working with the different people you're in relationship with, especially from women, how you got the message that you were overpowering, and you said that you related that to dominance. That's the last thing that we heard.
Okay. So I was also giving an example of my niece when I was working with her. I had been judging and working with her. She was maturing and there was good development over a period of time. And one day I as she balked on it, I eventually asked her, well, I was trying to ask her, well, do you think it's time for you to move out and get your own place, things like that. And so, in short, that's what transpired. But what was coming from that event was the feeling from that person being overpowered. So where I start trying to identify is if you say dominance, it could appear to be that the son is very dominant. It could appear, so this is how my mind hears, how I hear words. It could appear to be that it dominates certain things. So, Chad, in answer to that, some of what I found is if a person is not used to light, it is very easy for them to feel dominated by light when they get into the presence of it.
Yes, very much so. I was going to say on the flip side of it, if someone has always been dominated from a condemnational point, they've always been condemned, they're going to feel condemned even when they're being judged correctly, because they don't know anything else.
Very good point. So again, and CJ has mentioned this. Hopefully, I don't know if he'll have any comments on it, but he's brought it up to my attention here recently. I generally share, just real quick, the children of Israel going into the wilderness. One thing that is interesting, God said, I am sending you through this experience to prove you. That word prove is a process of judgment. one of the things that he did as he was taking them through judgment, and is he didn't give them water. He did not give them food. And it's interesting how they behaved from not having water and food. So they basically were challenged a certain way, and their lacks or their challenges revealed their weaknesses. Judgment. Now, the whole time that Moses is walking with them, trying to lead them and all of that, they keep on saying, you brought us out here to die. You brought us out here to die. Not only that, there were arguments of who does this man think he is? We can think for our own self. We don't need him. We're just as strong as he is. All of those things started coming up as they were going through a process of judgment. I say this, that the way Christianity has presented God has been either he's a man with a gavel in his hand, or either he is just as soft and as pliable and is so concerned about our needs. The two extremes is what I've seen taught in Christianity, and he's in the middle. God is in the middle of that. And so one is people respond to God. Certain types of people have in behavior, the way they behave, when he reflects on them, they feel like it's too strong or too harsh, just like the children of Israel. And then you have some that feel like God just, if I call on him and ask of him, all of those things, he's just so soft. And he's very reflective, very revealing. He reveals to you what you look like and what you are, where you're short and where you're just right, where you're too tall. He reveals all of it. And generally the responses to that is that God is a little bit too harsh and we don't like that kind of a judgment. So I'm getting that from kind of connecting with your saying, child. What we established somewhat, condemnation, has to do with, I use an example. If I had a car accident and I start relating that car accident, this happened to me because I did this back when, and this happened to me because I did that. That's just an example. I did these kind of things, and God is now trying to correct me or punish me for those things that I did that were wrong. That's condemnation. And so what I established is what God looks at is, in essence, if you had been abused, then automatically what's going to happen is that abuse is going to cause you to sin if it has not been healed. It will cause you to sin. So now this person has had a disadvantage because they had been raped, they had been abused, they had been in slavery, all of these things. And because they had been through this experience, now they have a bad behavior. And God then says, look, you did this wrong. And now, bam, you're going to have a car accident because you did that wrong. That's condemnation. What God always does is he always assesses, that's a part of judgment, of cause. He always assesses of that, and he begins to repair or send repair to that particular thing. And as he's sending repair, he does not say, I'm going to allow this to happen to you because you're doing it wrong. He tries to repair that before that point, if you understand what I'm saying. So the difference is God condemning someone just because they've done something wrong, although he did not give an account to the cause. Real judgment, it takes into account the cause, and then it takes into account, it assesses what is needed, and it begins to supply what is needed so that something can become sufficient. God does not condemn something that is deficient because of something that caused it to be in that state. He does not condemn it. All deficient behaviors sin. Did you understand what I just said?
I did.
All deficient behaviors trespass. So one way to look at it, if you would draw a line, and you draw a line and you put the sun, the moon, the stars above that line, and then underneath that line, you would put dark. And if you remember, God said, think on these things, whatsoever is pure, whatsoever is just, everything that he says always keeps the mind in light. It never goes below the darkness. So this is how we're always supposed to think in terms of light. Always think in terms of the positive, in other words, light. I'm not saying mind over matter. That's a healthy thinker, that they're thinking in light. This happened to me, but it is growth. It is the cause. It is like no pain, no gain. Anything like that. That's correct judgment. Now, if you're below that line in your thinking, and you're thinking things negative or dark, you will have bad behaviors. Without fail, no one is exempt from that. Let's stop there.
The rain falls on the just and the unjust. The difference between animals and all of the beings in us is that they don't really question what is fair and what is not. If an animal's time to die comes along and they die, they're not questioning, is this fair or is this just? They're saying, this is my time. This is my season. These are things that develop after the fall in us of, is this fair? Is this just? What happens when we start thinking in terms of, oh, this isn't fair, this isn't just, this is unfair of God to do this to me. If God is real, why is this happening to me? Is we start to get an incorrect picture of God. God doesn't just say good things are going to happen to you. You're going to live a life void of suffering. It goes back to that analogy of Abraham. When a tree falls in the way of a stream, does the stream say this is unfair? The stream finds a path around it. It flows in the direction it's supposed to go. So if I get into a car accident, my question is, isn't this fair? What could I have done to prevent this? I have so much regret about this. My thought process is, where am I supposed to go? How am I supposed to respond in this situation?
True.
Yeah, that's good. Someone posted something on Facebook the other day talking about how going through a struggle or a hard time or something is a chance for you to, it's not a bad thing, it's a chance for you to, become better. But the way they phrased it, they were placing judgment on the struggle itself, the bad situation or something like that. And the way my mind took it was the struggle, the bad situation, I don't judge as much as I judge my response to it. I mean, I don't like any bad situation. I'm not going to make myself like a bad situation just to whatever. But what I judge is my response. I like or dislike how I responded to that situation. And from there, I make change. If I go through a situation, if I get in a car wreck, the car wreck's the car wreck. It's just going to happen. But I can judge how I respond to that car wreck. What did I do right after? How did I go about? What was my way of processing it? To me, that's where I lay my judgment for self anyway, and not on the situation. Because we're going to have situations. That's just a normal part of life. We live in a corrupt world. And I mean, we're going to have bad things happen. But what I can judge is whether I respond right or not. And, you know, there's times where it's like, I don't like the way I responded to that. I need to change. I need to do something different, see things different, think different, because I didn't like the way I responded.
Then starts coming into the picture, and where we start to think about Cain and Abel, or even Adam and Eve, and the response of, it almost looks like we said, "Oh God, I'm a victim of you. You have oppressed me," and that's where sin starts to enter in. If the sin doesn't come when you're angry, it doesn't come when you're upset that you're in the situation. It comes when you start going to God and saying, your behaviors start to say, "God, you have made me a victim. It's unfair that you have made me a victim." A lot of Christians believe that. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
A lot of Christians will paint the picture of God as, "Oh, we're a victim of God, and soon we're all going to be a victim of God because He's going to come back, He's going to judge us, and so everybody's going to have to feel what we're feeling because we've been oppressed." Because He's all powerful and He's going to come back and make everybody suffer. That is not accurate. That is not true.
Mm-hmm.
A part of response. Let's try to get it to be in a dynamic area. We were talking about the name. And so what it means is that how I respond to things is as my Father responds to things. How I respond to things is how I have been judged, or the one that has judged me has prepared me to respond to things as He responds to things. That's judgment. That's names. That's Israel. God prevails. It means that I have been judged. And because I have been judged, I am now able to walk and have the authority of my Father. I am able to respond as my Father. When you say prevail, you can't separate that from the word authority. Now, we can say that, or we can talk about response, how I handle the situation, and that, or we can say, I have been judged and I respond according to, like God said, like Jesus said about Him and His Father, we are one. I respond according to how He responds. So every father is supposed to be a judge. Every father is supposed to assess, take an assessment of his child or his children and begin to apply the things that would cause them to grow. Does that make sense? I want to introduce another part a little bit and see how we go. I want to be considerate of the our society to some degree and where we are today. And so I say that because if this is on video, I want everybody that sees it, listens to it, to that understand that I say this with some, I say it with consideration of our conditions that we live in today. I will say it that way. I was represented, someone represented to me here recently that church religion has totally handled things like homosexuality, things like that wrong. I want you to understand, we're talking about judgment. Now I want to try to see how to show you how to correctly judge something. So our society begins to say that it is wrong to judge those things. These are human beings. Just like, and I agree that they're human beings. Just a minute. Thank you. I agree. I believe that the way they've been handled and the way that that society has approached those things have been wrong and not approached them correctly. So let me make that statement. But on the other hand, what I am trying to bring out was a little distracted. My neighbor gave me something, so I have to catch back on. So our society pretty much feels that we take now a hands-off approach to something like that. It was introduced to me very interesting. It was introduced as now a norm, or it is a new norm. So the idea that is happening in the minds of our society is that this is just as normal as heterosexual. So what do we judge that by? How do we determine that this is normal? Now we're dealing with, I dealt with earlier, God judging us. Now we're dealing with how we judge. How we judge. How do we determine that homosexuality was not, it was painted by Christianity as a, this is not right, it's wrong, versus the New Testament and Old. We share the story of Sodom and Gomorrah and how God destroyed it because there was homosexuality there. Do you know that a lot of our world right now is, and the Christian world, a lot of areas are making adjustments on those particular things. So in short, again, I would say that if there's a misjudgment or if judgment is handled incorrectly, it has this effect. It has the effect that causes things to increase in the dark or in the negative if the judgment is wrong, if it is incorrect. You would see something that is below that light, that line of light, you would see that it would increase. And you would see more and more and more. It would become more normal if it stays below the light, if you understand what I'm trying to say. And so it is a picture, is showing us that something has been misjudged or judged incorrectly. And the judgment that has been made, I would say, has not been correctly, it has not been corrected yet. That means that the bad behavior or the thing that has been developed would compound itself and it would continue on growing and the nature of it would change. If you were to look, just a lot of example, COVID-19, how it started. And you had this thing, and then it would compound itself. It would change its nature, and then it would change it again, and it'd change it again. That's a message. That's kind of how God speaks. Well, you can do the same thing with I'm trying to be cautious, but the same thing with homosexuality or anything else. It will compound itself. If you don't change whatever judgment or the thing that was incorrect, it would grow, it would increase. Then what happened is we began to say that this is now life. It is normal. What you just saw is that the whole standard of life just dropped. And that has become the new idea. I'm not bashing at all. I'm interested in repair. So the question that I want to try to present is, not how do we change it, but is it, I'll just lightweight say, how should we judge? What causes, how do we judge those things? What causes an accurate judgment of something? If God looks at our bad behaviors and he does not take an account of cause and he punishes, what do you think would happen?
It would get worse.
What?
It would get worse.
It would get worse. It would increase.
Right.
When we walk with our children and we see that their condition is not improving, but it is getting worse, what does it tell us about our method?
That we're not hearing the needs.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
And that what we were doing before isn't working, and we may have judged incorrectly.
Say that again, Chris.
That what we had been doing before was a result of an incorrect judgment, which is why it's not, why it would not be working.
Mm-hmm. So what helps us? What do we go by? What should we go by to judge correctly?
An established An established standard.
You said what? Established?
An established standard or a foundation. Without
Something.
it, we can't judge.
Without it, you cannot judge correctly. So how do we know, or is homosexuality, those kind of things, standard? We're trying to find out now what the word standard really means. Is it standard?
The standard of love is when two comes together and something is reproduced. Those two things cannot come together and reproduce. The same as a horse and a donkey. The byproduct is something that won't reproduce.
I gotta challenge that. The only way I can challenge it is by saying that sounds just like a Christian approach. I have heard the same approach. I've heard the same approach. That if there's something true about it, but I'm trying to challenge us to go further than that. How do we understand that homosexuality is not a natural thing? So I guess I don't know what fruits they are, but it's certain fruits that doesn't have the ability to reproduce itself. They're good, but they mix this fruit with that fruit, and because they mix these two things, it cannot produce its. It doesn't have the ability to reproduce like that.
I have a tree just like that. I have a tree just like that. It's half peach and half apricot, and it's an ornamental. It's to look at, not to get anything from.
How do we judge? How do we know that it is not? How do we know that something like homosexuality is not common, or it's not the normal, or it's not standard? How do we know that?
Well, I think that this is a basic answer to that, I believe. But if the Father is to administer judgment, and it has to reflect the Father. So if Yah is the Father, if Yah is the Father of the earth, then the action has to reflect the mind of the Father. So the purpose of judgment actually is to bring, well, there's many purposes, but one of the purposes is to bring intimacy between father and child, or to the whole family line. If there is no judgment, then you're going to see a family line which has a lot of inconsistency. That's what I see.
Say that last part again.
I said,
you're talking about the byproduct being inconsistent.
Meaning, yes, being inconsistent, meaning there will be brokenness within the family line. There will be brokenness within the family line. That's it.
So, Chris, go ahead.
Let me see, where's I going to start? Yeah, a lot of times Uncle Tracy will ask tough questions. That was one of those. But what it made me think of is first when I heard Randall give his response, I also heard it as, I didn't take it as just literal. So when you say reproduction or creating life, like you mentioned, Uncle Tracy, of course, you know, Christians have used the very literal point of, you know, a man and a woman and a woman cannot create life. But also when you were talking about
Yeah.
what the purpose of judgment is meant to do, bring about life, or to bring something to health, or to maintain the health of something. When we've talked about the verses in the New Testament with the almond tree, that's kind of how I heard it, in one sense, a non-literal idea of reproduction or producing after your kind, producing life. That's kind of how I heard Randall. And then you said a long time ago, you said something to the effect of, well, I'm not sure if you said it this way, but another really good point that I think Chris brought out was when he talked about an intimate relationship with God. And you mentioned that you cannot have an intimate relationship implies love, and you cannot have love without judgment. And so if there is something that is a barrier between in your relationship with God, then I would say, and as you're going through the process, that's something that is filtered out or that is healed. I know that's very general, but that's how I would determine what is natural or unnatural. So when you talk about things like homosexuality, when you talk about personality traits and the imbalances that we have, I feel like that is what helps determine what things, how we were naturally made or created, whether you talk about gender, whether you talk about sexuality, whether you talk about personality traits.
I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to say that in order to judge something like that, you have to have a perfect picture of what something is supposed to look like. You can't accurately judge anything without a perfect picture of what something is supposed to look like. So in order to understand whether homosexuality is wrong or if it's natural or unnatural, you would have to deal with the imperfections or the wounds or the whatever you want to call it, sin, iniquity, guilt, those things in a person before you see what is before you can actually see what is natural to them.
That's very interesting. I wanted to pose this to the group really quickly,
Yes.
because when Uncle Tracy when he brought up the first question, I was thinking about perfect picture as well. The reason, one of the things that I say it's so interesting, because when you brought it up, Micaiah, the question is, in an imperfect world, in a world that Uncle Tracy was talking about, where the norm and how we judge and how we see what is healthy is not a perfect picture, how do we understand what the perfect picture is?
And that will be to start dealing with the traumas, as the society calls it, or the issues of the world. If that is not dealt with, we can't even judge correctly. So we can't go around condemning the behavior without dealing with healing first.
Very interesting. Very good. Makai, very good. You described a lot of it. And CJ, very good challenge in your question. One of the things that comes to my mind is, as Micaiah said, seeing a perfect picture, or I would say something that is original, that operates in its optimum. You'll be able to compare this to that. in order to have balance, you have to have something to compare it to. You have to have a comparison. And so when I say comparison, I'm saying, again, something that I can see that I bought a car. I bought it brand new. It had gas in it. It had the best gas in it, and not the low octane, but the high octane. It had oil, the good oil in it. It functions this way. It runs. The motor is tight. Everything's working well. I drive it for a while. I can tell by certain signals and certain signs that this particular thing needs new oil, or I need to put more gas, or I put low octane in it and it's starting to stutter and shake and all of those kind of things. These points were made in what was shared.
Mm-hmm.
So I can tell that this thing is not performing quite like it at its optimum right now. But if if you started, I've said this before, in a world to where there was no, I was born at a time to where all I saw was this. I was not born on day one when the first man was born to see how everything was created. But now I'm born at a time to where after things have been created and after there has been trauma, after there has been misjudgments, after all of those things and the rebellion to those misjudgments and the rebellion to the force or the dominance, that's what I see. That's all I know. How do you find, because if what I'm trying to present is, as long as it goes like that for as long as it goes like that for a while, the longer it goes, the less you will have a standard. The more it erases a perfect picture. How is it ever established? Again, now think about a perfect picture. A father, Abba, God. How the only way that it can be established then is through sacrifice. Is through something that sacrifices itself. What you have to understand is inside your body, inside in this creation, it's the whole structure of reproduction is made off of sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
Reproduction is something that sacrifices. Sacrifices, it can reproduce. That is God.
Did Tracy cut out or did I lose the internet?
I thought he might have cut out. I was trying to see if he was finished or just cut out.
I think he's walking too far away from his Wi-Fi.
Yeah, he just dropped.
I guess while we're waiting, I have an answer to his question about standard, and how we tell standard, or at least how I do. One of the key things that I notice about standard is that when you have standard, there's no needs presented. If you have a standard, the standard for a marriage, there's not going to be needs in that marriage. But when you're less than standard, that presents needs.
He's talking about freedom from the law. If you operate therein, there's no need to give a breakdown. One of the things I was contemplating, because I have a lot of gay clients when I do this tree work, Dallas has got a lot of gay people. And I was just contemplating, what does judgment look like from them? They're happy with their lifestyles. They have money. They have a nice house. They love their freedom and they love all of that. And I just thought, well, what does judgment do for someone like that? And I thought, there's nothing you can say. You can't say something to somebody that is happy with their position. But if you are living like what Chad was talking about, according to standard, there's going to be a challenge. A contrast is going to be obvious. Something is going to trigger them, even if you're not trying to address something, by articulating.
Oh, you're on the men's group?
The difference. Is that Tracy back?
Yeah, he's back.
Okay, good. Anyway, you need to put your chair next to your Wi-Fi, dude.
Chad, what?
I said you need to put your chair right next to your Wi-Fi.
Oh, yeah. I went outside, and that's probably why. But it's easier for me to talk out here than it is. But my Wi-Fi is acting funny. So anyway, I don't know I know what I was explaining. I don't know what you all have picked up. But in short, I was saying that everything that, I was saying Mount Zion is something of, Zion really means parched. It means something that is dry, meaning it doesn't have any grass, it doesn't have any vegetation, but and this is what God called his holy hill. So what it is giving us a picture of is something that sacrifices itself, something that dies and sacrifices itself. It's a picture of that, and that it sacrifices. A father learns to sacrifice, and that's what causes the growth in the family. That's what causes the health in the family. That's what causes, but if he doesn't sacrifice, it will not. That's standard. And so as you understand that is what I was trying to say. That is the only way to reestablish what the standard is once it has been totally removed. That is, it takes death. It takes something to die, and it takes life comes through death. It takes that process. Every Israelite had to learn how to die, to reproduce, to continue on reproducing the utmost standard or quality of life. It had to die. It failed. This is what the law, big part of the law is based off of. If there began to be that different ones began to fail to sacrifice their life, then you would see it in the quality of life in those people. That means the quality of life would go down. It would not be as high as it was or is. If you look at where we are today, we live in a fence mentality world. This is mine, not a sacrificial world. Then what you're going to see, the more it's like that, the more decay, the more dark, the more whatever. That's where everything is. If that kind of explains a little bit of how you reestablish what the standard is and how to reestablish a perfect picture is it starts taking a life of sacrifice.
Mm.
It takes those who are willing to say it cannot be established without it.
Tracy, while you were gone, I tried to answer your question about what is the standard. And my answer was, what is the standard would be what has no needs. And to tie that into what you just said, I would question, what is the purpose of a father sacrificing other than to provide the needs that were presented? And also with your car analogy, the standard of a car is a car without needs. It doesn't need oil, doesn't need gas. It has all that it needs. So to tie that in with homosexuality, within our society, there is a need presented from the homosexual community. If they were the standard, they would have no need. There would be no need presented, but it is presented. There's a need there, which tells me that it's not the standard. And that's how I make my judgment. And something else that kind of hit me when it comes to judgment that I see is before judgment comes rest. You cannot make judgment without resting first, because rest is where you determine how you're going to judge. And when I say, go ahead.
You said resting?
Yes, rest. Before judgment comes rest is what I would say.
Wouldn't you say rest and sacrifice are the same?
Yeah, that's yeah. You said that correct, Rando. It's without rest. It's that rest or that sacrifice that really creates accurate judgment. And it creates an actual standard or so that gives us a little something to go by and think about. All right, young fellas, what's your challenge to it? What you think?
So based on what was just said, the question that I need clarification on would be, does patience tie into that rest, or is that part of it? Because patience,
The question
what you said
that you
last
would
week,
have is what?
does patience tie into that rest to prove whether something should be sacrificed or judged the way it should be?
I'll let somebody else answer. I'm not. I need more information in order to understand what you're asking.
If you don't mind me jumping in real quick, because this was part of what I was going to respond with. I thought that what you talked about, Uncle Tracy, as far as sacrifice and that being at the basis of it, that really clicked with me, and it was a reminder because it made me think of two things. On one hand, when you've talked about, for example, getting out of the system, what that implies, what that entails in order to reestablish standard, that if you are still in one sense getting your value, your life, your riches, your success, whatever, off of the system, then there's no way to reestablish standard. So you've mentioned it, for example, with the example of health insurance, relying on medication. We've had that talk before, so that came to mind. And what also came to mind was in and this is how you started, was in Proverbs, how Proverbs starts. How it starts, and I'm pretty sure how it ends as well, but when it talks about receive the instruction of the fathers, and when it solidifies wisdom. And it's also interesting because if you guys can follow, because it's kind of convoluted in my mind, but there's there are a couple of different verses in Proverbs that talk about wisdom in relation to understanding. And what I mean is there's one specifically where it talks about a man who's walking by and he sees another man's vineyard who has wisdom but lacks understanding. And the picture that is presented is a vineyard that is in decay. So part of how I make the connection is even when we're talking about the idea male and female made he them. So as far as two, you talk about marriage, male and female working with points of working with wisdom, but understanding it, if that makes sense. Because the point, and when you talk about churches, or even the things that we outside of church, outside of religion, the things that we learn, with all thy getting, get understanding. That's one of the things that has come to mind. And even in the point of with what Michael just shared, what came to my mind is as far as patience, there's a verse that says, let patience have her perfect work, that you may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing, which also kind of ties into what Chad was just saying. But part of how I see that is in one sense, getting a wisdom picture of something. And you talked about these all died in faith, and then putting in the work for the perfect thing to be created, to be produced, whatever you want to call it. We've talked about that within the scope of a family. I know Chris specifically has talked about that. And so anyway, that's, I'm not sure if that's quite clear, but that's part of the tie that I heard when Michael mentioned patience and how patience might tie into that.
Yes, I got a lot of different, well, as usual, different things when you said that, CJ. Michael, did that fit what you were asking?
Yeah, so part of, yes, I would say that would be the more complete or condensed or hitting a lot more points to what I was trying to connect to. But one of the things that this meeting does is help us to say what we are trying, or say what we understand without it being what he said is what I meant. So so yeah, that's good.
I'm
Okay.
just to clarify, in case there's anything that you still have to express, Michael, feel free, because to be honest, I was really more just expressing what come to my mind versus trying to translate specifically what you had said. And so there might be some gaps in that, as I was trying to clarify.
No, I think you connected with adding to just the let patience have her perfect work, and that connecting to everything that you said added to my question.
Michael, your question provoked an answer in me. And whether you are patient, you are resting, or you are dead, they all are a type of homage and honor to Yahweh as being the provider. He is worthy to be patient for. He's worthy to rest with. He's worthy to die for. He does provide for us. And so that was what went through my mind when you asked that question.
Well, going off what Randall said, I do like what Randall said. When I think of that scripture, let patience have its perfect work, what creates patience is judgment. Okay, patience is like a womb that's protecting a contrast. You receive a contrast, you receive light, you have received the seed. Patience is actually protecting this thing so that this light can grow. Without patience, the seed dies, but it's patience that causes the seed to grow in the womb until it's birth. So that's kind of how I interpret that. Patience, you can also liken it as a type of sacrifice. You think of a woman as she, actually what's interesting is that when you think of as a woman and she's carrying a child, it's actually symbolic to a sacrifice. I'm trying to keep it simple, but it's really symbolic to a woman dying. That's her sacrifice. It looks like that. As a woman is carrying a child, her body changes, her whole mental state changes. She's no longer like her former self, and nor does she ever return to her former self. When she births a child, her whole mindset is no longer what it was as it used to be. Her body never really goes back to what it used to be. She carries pain all the time. Women talk about they got hip pain when they had children, or they got this pain. Their body never returns back to the former. It looks like a sacrifice to produce something. So that's kind of how I interpret that.
Interesting. Interesting when Chris said that, because it in one sense creates a contrast when he says that patience is you have patience comes after judgment. In one sense, you would say that what I heard Chris pointing at is almost like when you, this is a part of judgment though. That's what makes it explain it. When you are assessing something, when you are looking at it, trying to determine what it is or what its potential is, that's one of the first parts of judgment. You do not conclude until it has been challenged to reveal what its nature is. That's patience. And so, in essence, you don't come up with a conclusion until the right of something is proven.
Yep.
You don't come up with until the right of it was proven. So it made me think of that. Also, it made me think of it says, for let the trial of your faith. And I believe that one is probably emunah, the trial of your emunah, faith, your works. Let the trial of your faith, for the trial of your faith is your work, patience, or something like that. And so that means that every, it reminds me of scripture that says every man's work shall be tried by fire. And in essence, if it withstands the fire and it holds true and it's strong, then it is true. It is what it is meant to be. If it cracks or if it burns up or is consumed by whatever pressure, then it's showing you that it is what it is. But it says every man's work should be tried by fire, and it's something about it. If it's burned, it shall be saved. It doesn't say if it's burned, but it refers that fire actually burns all of the false, everything that is not solid, everything that is not for. That's challenge. That's challenge. And it brings it and it makes it to where it is what it is. All that is left, if whatever is left, that is true, that is solid, that is strong. Every man's work shall be tried by fire. So you can also say that patience is allowing those challenges to come to determine who and what I am. And that is God. That's what the children of Israel went through in the wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
They're going through that experience to determine who and what they are. That's the word prove.
I
The
have,
result of, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I
Jack.
have a different view. I'm not gonna say different view, but another way of looking at patience. And I highly relate it to honor, because you respond with patience to something you honor, be it another person, be it God and his promises. So when you have patience, you're showing honor to that which you're having patience with. And it's a form of honor to me.
You're showing patience to something that you honor. I'm trying to, I think I understand what you're saying. So in essence, if there is something that is challenging me, but I honor that thing that is challenging me, I will go through it.
Yes.
Is that kind of how you're saying it?
Yeah, that's kind of how, what I look at, I'm thinking more in terms of person to person, and I have a struggle with a person. However, if I honor that person, I'm going to have patience before making a judgment.
Well, the reason why I asked the question is, how do I know that your honor, how does a person know that this person is, or I don't know how to ask it other than to say, one person is being patient with this one because this one is like he is.
Then you're
Do you understand what
honoring.
I'm asking?
I think so.
So
You're honoring.
if you had a race of people who were all alike, because you're akin to me, I honor you with this job or with this work. Or that's just an example. I have a tendency to be a little bit more patient on people who are like me than people who are not.
I can understand that, but you're not honoring the person, you're honoring the similarity.
Uh-huh. But what happens is people don't realize that that's not the acknowledgement. So that's why I say, if you say to me, if you connect it to honor, I can see it connected to honor. But if someone connects it to the honor, that's where my mind would go. My mind would go, well, what happens if you have someone that you have a tendency to favor, and you honor them and you're more patient with them, but the one that you don't have a tendency to favor, you're less patient with.
Does anybody have, does anybody have a radio or something on? There's like some noise in the background. I was trying to.
So you
It
kind
might
of
be
understand. The reason why I say that, Chad, is honor is honor comes by something. If I were to say it, I would almost say it this way. Honor comes by, you can say it that way, but honor first, you have to be valued, or you have to have value in order to honor. Something that is depleted of value does not have the ability to honor. So if God says for the children to honor thy father and mother, but it has no value, I guarantee you, it will not honor. It will tear down. So then we need to understand that if the father sacrifices and sends up the minerals and all of those kind of things, that those children in essence are going to give honor to the father. And so it's going to give honor to it. Honor really comes from value. And once that thing is valued, or if I have value, then you might be able to say too, I have the ability to be patient. But patience then would be something that has the ability to wait until the value of something is found. I don't know if you see how I'm using that.
Yeah, I am.
Okay, so what's your thought?
Okay, here's my other question. When we deal with sacrifice of the father, wouldn't that also be based and rooted in value? Him seeing value before he sacrifices, like similar to how you're using it.
Mm-hmm.
And so if fathers lack seeing the value, then they're not going to be able to sacrifice. Would that make sense?
If fathers, what the value?
If they were not able to see value in their children per se, then they would not be able to sacrifice the way they're needed to.
That would be backwards to me. So I would say, because I have value, I take things that have lost their value and I place value in them as a father.
Okay, I see what
you're starting from the original point. God saw the earth, it was, let's say, without form and void, and he starts putting value in it. He starts from putting that presence has a way of causing something to grow, increase, and place value.
Okay.
That's the starting point.
I think,
and he causes it to receive his value. Go ahead, Chris.
I think to tie in what Tracy's saying, when that scripture says, and it's about to love thy God with all thy heart and love thy neighbor as thyself. This is what Tracy's talking about. It really, I don't like that word love. Because it leads your mind in the wrong way. So honor is saying to honor God, to honor your neighbor, but to be in a relationship with Yah. Yah does not value something that's beneath him. Yah is going to lay judgment to raise that thing up to his level. Then when it says you do the same to your neighbor, that's what Tracy's saying.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that
That's
to some
interesting.
people, it sounds funny. I think what I understand him say is, when I say this, I see something that is deficient. It is not honorable when it is in a deficient state, but I value it so that it can receive and become to where it's sufficient. And that is what is honorable. Did that make sense?
I understand. It did.
Yeah.
I
was go ahead.
No, it's fine. You're good. Go ahead, Uncle Tracy.
Go ahead.
I was just
CJ.
going to say, part of, I feel like what has been placed in, as far as a challenge, and even when you said what you did as far as your when you talk about seeing something and putting value in it, part of when I heard Chad say what he did, and I understood how you heard it as backwards and you started from the original point. Part of what I heard him say was that a father who does not have value will not and cannot sacrifice for his family. So that's kind of what I heard, and I think it kind of relates to what you were saying as well, when you talked about honor, because when Chad was speaking, I heard about respect and how people see respect. So when you last brought it up, the last point that you made, you talked about um honorable, what was honorable, and then from that point, that we honor, I don't know how else to say it, but the same, what makes us respect God, what makes us respect our Father. Generally a father will be at the top and just respect me, or honor me, without when you talk about sacrifice or being in one sense honorable. And this isn't to bash fathers by any means, but even when you talk about judgment and what we are called to do, what the challenge that especially a lot of the younger men that are on this group are being faced with, is that kind of idea. So I was just kind of responding to what I heard Chad say and what I heard you say as well.
All right, very good. I want to connect with what that, and then we're going to start closing. The way to go about dealing with the conditions in our society, homosexuality, things like that. If you follow the structure of what I was saying, it says that you begin to make correction way back here. And you do not, so judge, listen to what I'm saying, you do not try to fix and change, though you don't try to judge, in essence, those people. You don't try to judge. And I think Chad, in one of the things he said, he almost hit this, he was hitting this structure. You're saying you judge the situation. Chad was saying, you don't judge those people. You don't judge them. This is where Christianity makes, if I run around the street talking about they sinners, they all going to hell, and I'm condemning, that's condemnation. I don't need to even say that. I don't even need to touch it. What I need to do is correct what we have misapplied and done wrong way back here. And guess what happens? You will see a change. And it will establish what that standard really is. You don't have to touch it. You don't have to touch it. You don't have to run around letting everybody know, so to speak, this is wrong. You don't have to do that. What you have to do is begin to correct what is off, or what has not been judged, or what has been misjudged years and years down the road, and give time for that growth. After that correction, give time for the growth of that to be revealed. That's what I would say. All right, somebody, y'all give your last bit and we're gonna close.
To me, that's what you said, Uncle Chase. That's gonna take a while for me to wrap my head around. I mean,
You said that's tough.
Yeah, it's tough. It's not to me. It doesn't make sense because I'm so used to, like, if that's wrong, then call it wrong. Call it as it is. That's wrong, and you shouldn't be doing that. And then with your approach of how we should fix this is that, okay, there's something wrong with how we've judged this before, because whatever we did before, whatever we messed up, because this is still a continuing problem and it seems like it's spreading. And now, because we judge incorrectly, this problem is now getting worse. And that the way to fix it isn't just to do what we always have been doing, with just saying this is wrong, because we all know it. I feel like, in a sense, we all know that it's wrong already, but just constantly going out and saying that this is wrong, this is and it doesn't solve the underlying issues or the traumas underneath, or it's still on, I guess, the surface level of just saying that this house is on fire, and you're just running around telling everyone the house is on fire. Well, are you gonna do anything about the house being on fire? Just running around telling everybody the house is on fire without solving the issue of the house being on fire. You're not going to grab water and try to put the fire out. You're just running around screaming at the top of your lungs that, hey, this house is on fire.
Interesting, Chris. Well, I would just as an interesting point, if I would use you as an example, if you are the type of person that feels that, as you would say, that we need to deal with this way, when we need to deal with that, what I would say, ask you, Chris, we need to deal with this problem. It's wrong, and you pointed out that way. Then what I would ask you is this question: are you that way on yourself? Answer that.
And I would say, yes, I'm very much like that.
I agree.
That's a tough one.
So I'm dealing with your behavior. So you are hard on yourself, and you deal with yourself. You crush yourself, or man, I messed up, and it's crushing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You can't grow from that behavior. You need to identify. Chris Jr. has to identify the cause in which he is not performing the duty. Do you understand what I just said?
Yes.
You're not dumb. I'm not talking to you, but I'm just as an example. I would say to you, you're not dumb. You're not stupid as to the reason why you did that. There may be something that is in your bloodstream, or it may be something that is in your DNA, whatever you ever call it, that is causing this to perform this way. And as you identify that, then you are able to deal with that and correct that. And then now I can perform right. That is how you're supposed to work with yourself. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That is how you're supposed to work with you. Identify, assess, identify, I did this wrong. I failed here. I have a tendency to now assess, identify, and see where it came from, make an adjustment, and then you can perform correctly. That is how you're supposed to work with yourself. You're not supposed to see that I am wrong, I did this wrong, and so now, it's too hard on you. It's too hard, and you generally don't operate correctly. It never works. That makes sense.
Yes.
Okay.
That's
anybody else?
That real quick, what he was explaining right there is supposed to be a part of your day. That is supposed to be part of your decompression. Is going throughout the day and trying to understand how you responded and why you responded. And once you can work through some of those things, we work through some of that here, where you're supposed to do this daily. It's supposed to be something that happens all the time, not just in men's group, but men's group is a great tool for it. Once you start being able to start doing that, you'll start to see growth in how you respond to things.
Good stuff.
Hey, now I'd like to say to everyone in the group, even though I've been gone for a while, going through my things and all, the past couple months, I've been seriously applying stuff that I've learned in the group to life and have seen so much fruit and seen so much benefit to applying what we talk about. I can't get over how much benefit there actually is in this men's group. So I hope all you guys get to see it too, and I'm appreciative that you let me come back.
Well, hey, Chad, you're a part of it, so keep on.
Well,
All right. We can close. We can see everybody, I guess, next week. And we can text or something to see what we want to open up, talk about if there's any challenges or something like that. Let's try to keep it interesting and moving forward.
So I'm not trying to add to